My name is Savannah Carter. I'm 34 years old. For most of my life, I believed family deserved endless chances. I believed loyalty meant helping people even when they never seemed grateful. I believed that if you kept showing up for someone long enough, eventually they would appreciate it. I was wrong. The moment I finally understood that happened at my own Thanksgiving dinner table. My 14-year-old son, Liam, was smiling. That alone should tell you how important the moment was. Liam wasn't the kind of kid who demanded attention. He never had been. He thought carefully before speaking. He observed more than he talked. And when he got excited about something, it meant it truly mattered to him. That night, he was telling everyone about a robotics program he'd been accepted into. His eyes were bright. His hands moved while he talked. For once, he wasn't hiding behind a book or staring down at his plate. I remember sitting there thinking how proud I was. Then my younger sister opened her mouth. Some kids are just born a step behind. She said it with a smirk, not looking at me, looking directly at Liam. The room went quiet for half a second. Liam's smile disappeared. His eyes dropped immediately to his plate. Like someone had flipped a switch, and something inside me snapped. I looked across the table at my sister, Kelsey, 36 years old, unemployed, living in my guest room with her 2 children after her boyfriend kicked her out 6 months earlier. She wasn't even looking at Liam anymore. She was already helping herself to more mashed potatoes. Like humiliating a child was just another casual part of dinner conversation. Behind? I asked calmly. She shrugged, a tiny smile still sitting on her face. I nodded once. Behind like you're 36, unemployed, and raising your kids in my guest room? Every sound in the room died instantly. Forks froze. Conversations stopped. Even the kids went silent. Kelsey's face drained of color so fast, it was almost impressive. My boyfriend Matthew glanced at me, not surprised, just watching, because he knew exactly how long I'd been swallowing my anger. My mother immediately jumped in. Savannah. The warning in her voice was familiar. The same warning she'd used my entire life, whenever Kelsey created a problem and someone dared hold her accountable. I didn't even look at Mom. It's exactly the time, I said. Kelsey laughed nervously. Oh my God. I was joking. I ignored her. What part was funny? Her smile faltered. I kept going. Was it the speech delay Liam had when he was 6? Silence. Was it the years of therapy? More silence. The meetings. The evaluations. The tutors. The extra work he did while other kids played outside? Kelsey looked away. I wasn't yelling. I didn't need to. The truth was doing enough damage. You don't get to sit in my house, eat food I paid for, use electricity I paid for, sleep under my roof for free, and then insult my son. Liam still hadn't looked up. That hurt more than anything. Because this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time she'd been stupid enough to do it in front of everyone. Mom tried again. She didn't mean, don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Mom stopped talking. For a second I thought Kelsey might finally back down. Instead, she doubled down. She always did. You work all the time, she snapped. Maybe if you spent less time acting perfect and more time with Liam, he wouldn't be so weird. The room seemed to physically tense. Matthew leaned back in his chair. My father stared at the table. I looked directly at her. You're not a stay-at-home mom. Her face hardened. Excuse me? You're a woman whose boyfriend threw her out. Her eyes widened. You begged me for a place to stay. I saw the first crack appear. You didn't choose this life, Kelsey. The crack widened. And you don't get to insult my son because he's accomplishing things your bitterness can't understand. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For the first time in years, nobody rushed to save her. My father slowly stood up. Without saying a word, he walked out of the dining room. That scared Kelsey more than anything I could have said. Because Dad never walked away. He always defended her. Always. Not this time. I stood up and walked around the table. Liam. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. Not crying. Trying not to. The sight nearly broke my heart. Come upstairs with me. He nodded immediately. Neither of us looked back. We left the table behind. We left the silence behind. And as we climbed the stairs, I knew something fundamental had changed. Not just for Kelsey. For me. Because for the first time in my life, I was finished protecting someone who had spent years hurting the people I loved. And I had no idea yet just how much worse things were about to become. That night, After everyone either left or disappeared into their rooms, I sat alone in the kitchen. The dishwasher hummed softly. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I stared into a glass of wine and replayed the look on Liam's face over and over again. Not the moment Kelsey insulted him. The moment afterward. The way he immediately believed her words mattered. That was what haunted me. Kids don't react like that to strangers. They react like that when the insult comes from someone who's been saying the same thing for years. And Kelsey had. She'd always hidden her cruelty behind jokes. Little comments. Little smirks. Little digs she could deny later. When Liam was younger, he didn't notice. Now he did. And suddenly, I couldn't stop thinking about every time I'd let it slide. Every excuse I'd accepted. Every warning sign I'd ignored. The next morning, Kelsey acted like nothing had happened. She used my eggs. Milk. My pancake mix. She left dirty dishes covering half the kitchen. She never apologized. Never mentioned Thanksgiving. Never spoke to Liam. The arrogance of it stunned me. As if enough time had already passed. As if she could simply move on. I dropped Liam off at school. When I came home, Matthew was sitting at the dining table, answering emails. I sat down across from him. I'm done. He looked up immediately. Done? Kelsey's leaving. For half a second he looked surprised. Then he nodded. Good. That was it. No debate. No hesitation. Because he'd seen everything too. 6 months of excuses. 6 months of laziness. 6 months of drama. I walked upstairs. Kelsey was lying in bed, scrolling through her phone. At 11 in the morning, I knocked once. We need to talk. She rolled her eyes. What now? You have until the end of the week. Her phone lowered slowly. What? You need to move out. The silence lasted several seconds. Then came the performance. You can't be serious. I am. My kids need stability. I folded my arms. Then provide it. Her eyes narrowed. You're making us homeless. No. Your choices did. The victim mask slipped immediately. I knew it, she snapped. You think you're better than everyone? I said nothing. You've always thought you were better than me. Still nothing. You've got your perfect house. Your perfect boyfriend. Your perfect kid. My kid isn't part of this. She laughed bitterly. Oh, please. Liam isn't some genius. That was strike 2. You've spent 6 months living here rent-free. She opened her mouth. I kept going. You haven't applied for jobs. I have too. You haven't. I have. I stared at her. She looked away first, because we both knew she was lying. You have until Sunday. Then I walked out. The screaming started before I reached the stairs. By dinner, she was slamming doors. By midnight, she was sending texts to our mother. By the next morning, she was suddenly sweet. Too sweet. She offered to wash dishes. She thanked me for things she'd never thanked me for before. She even tried helping Liam with homework. He looked so uncomfortable that he excused himself after 3 minutes. The whole thing felt fake. Because it was. Kelsey wasn't changing. She was calculating, trying to find another way out, trying to regain control. What she didn't know was that I'd already started digging. Years earlier, Kelsey had created a secret Instagram account. A fake profile. A place where she posted things she'd never dare say publicly. Rants. Complaints. Insults. Half-truths. Cruel jokes. She had blocked me long ago. But she forgot about my friend Harper. Harper still followed the account. And once I explained what happened at Thanksgiving, Harper sent me everything. Every screenshot. Every post. Every disgusting comment. I sat at my desk for hours. Reading. Scrolling. Printing. The first one made my stomach drop. A picture of a robotics flyer. Liam's robotics flyer. The caption read, Future Billionaire Genius. Or, Future Guy Living in Mom's Basement. Hard to tell. There were laughing emojis underneath. The next one was worse. Then another. Then another. Years of mockery. Years of cruelty. Years of making my son the punchline. I printed every single one. Not because I enjoyed it. Because I wanted proof. Proof that nobody could explain away. Nobody could dismiss. Nobody could call a misunderstanding. Then I found something else. A post about our parents. Another about former coworkers. Another mocking her own friends. Nobody was safe. Everyone existed only as material for her jokes. The more I read, the more I understood something. Kelsey didn't just insult people. She needed to. It was how she felt important. The following evening, I invited our parents over. I told them we needed to clear the air. Mom sounded relieved. Dad sounded cautious. Kelsey sounded suspicious. Good. She should have been. When everyone arrived, I waited until we were seated. Then I placed a thick stack of papers in the middle of the table. The room instantly went still. Kelsey saw them first. And for the first time all week, she looked genuinely afraid. "What is that?" Mom asked. I slid the stack toward Dad. "Read." Dad adjusted his glasses. The first few pages confused him. The next few pages changed his expression. The pages after that made him visibly angry. Mom started reading too. The silence became unbearable. Kelsey shifted in her chair. "Those are private." Nobody answered. They were jokes. Still nobody answered. Dad flipped another page. Then another. Then another. The color drained from Mom's face. Finally she whispered, "You said these things about Liam." Kelsey immediately pointed at me. "She's spying on me." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Every time she got caught, she changed the subject. Every time. Dad wasn't having it. "Answer your mother." Kelsey froze. Mom repeated the question, this time louder. "You said these things about your nephew?" No answer. The silence itself became the answer. Then I placed a second folder on the table. Dad frowned. "What's this?" "Job application." Kelsey's head snapped toward me. I opened the folder. Page after page. Incomplete applications. Drafts. Unfinished resumes. Saved forms. Not one submitted. Not one. 6 months of pretending. 6 months of claiming she was trying. 6 months of lies. "You went through my computer?" She sounded horrified. I looked at her calmly. "My laptop." Silence. "You used my laptop." More silence. Dad leaned back in his chair. The disappointment on his face was unlike anything I'd ever seen. For the first time in our lives, Kelsey couldn't talk her way out. Mom wasn't defending her. Dad wasn't rescuing her. Even Matthew remained completely silent, watching, waiting, letting the truth do its work. Then Dad spoke. His voice was calm. Too calm. "You have 3 days." Kelsey blinked. "What?" "3 days to leave Savannah's house." She stared at him, then at Mom. Mom lowered her eyes. "No rescue coming," Dad continued. "And don't come to ours." The words hit harder than any scream could have. Kelsey looked like she'd been slapped. "Dad." "No." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Then suddenly she stood. Her chair scraped violently across the floor. "This family is unbelievable." Nobody answered. "You've all betrayed me." Still, nobody answered. Tears filled her eyes. But for the first time, nobody rushed to comfort her. Nobody chased after her. Nobody begged her to stay. She stormed upstairs. Seconds later, the guest room door slammed hard enough to shake the wall. The silence afterward felt different. Lighter. Cleaner. Like something poisonous had finally been dragged into the sunlight. I looked around the table. At my parents. At Matthew. At the pile of evidence between us. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't the end of Kelsey's downfall. It was only the beginning. Because what none of us knew yet was that Kelsey was already preparing her next lie. And her next lie was going to blow up far beyond our family. Kelsey packed the way she did everything else in life. Slowly. Dramatically. Like she believed someone would eventually stop her. Every day, she dragged out the process. Every day she hinted that she had a plan. Every day she acted as if the universe would somehow save her from the consequences of her own choices. It didn't. 3 days later, she was gone. She loaded her bags into an aging SUV, packed up her 2 boys, took a few things that didn't belong to her, and drove away without saying goodbye. Not to me. Not to Matthew. Not even to Liam. The guest room looked like a disaster zone. Food wrappers hidden in drawers, crayon marks on the walls, stains in the carpet, an unfinished sandwich shoved into the closet. I stood in the doorway staring at the mess. Part of me was angry. Part of me wasn't surprised. Liam walked up beside me. Neither of us spoke. We just looked. Then he quietly grabbed a trash bag. Matthew grabbed cleaning supplies. And together we started fixing what she left behind. It took most of the afternoon. When we finished, the room finally felt like ours again. That evening, Liam looked lighter, like he could breathe. And honestly, so could I. For about 2 weeks, things were peaceful. Then, the phone calls started. Kelsey had begun telling her version of the story. According to her, I had thrown a struggling single mother and her children into the street. According to her, I was jealous, controlling, cruel, obsessed with looking perfect. She called cousins, old friends, relatives she hadn't spoken to in years, anyone willing to listen. The problem was that Kelsey had spent years burning bridges, and eventually people stopped believing someone whose stories never match reality. One afternoon, I received a message from a woman named Janelle. I'd met her years earlier at a company barbecue. She used to work with Kelsey. Her message was short. I think you should see this. Attached was a screenshot. Then another. Then another. Janelle explained that Kelsey had recently applied for a position at her company. At first, I didn't care. Then I noticed something. My name. Kelsey had listed me as a professional reference. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. After everything she'd done, she actually expected me to help her get hired. But the surprises weren't over. The resume itself was fiction. Entire sections were fabricated. She claimed she had spent the previous year working as an independent consultant. False. She claimed she had temporarily moved in with her sister to help care for a sick nephew. False. She claimed she left her previous position voluntarily to pursue professional opportunities. False. Even her employment dates didn't match. It was ridiculous. I forwarded the application directly to Kelsey. No message. No explanation. Just the file. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. I watched it vibrate. Ignored it. It rang. Again. Ignored it. Then came the text. Savannah, seriously? Why are you doing this? This is my career. You're ruining my life over one comment. I stared at the screen. One comment. That was always her defense. Reduce years of behavior into a single isolated incident. Make everyone forget the pattern. I replied with one sentence. It was never one comment. Then I blocked her number for the rest of the day. That night, something happened that stayed with me. I was packing Liam's lunch for school. He walked into the kitchen, leaning quietly against the counter, watching me. After a moment, he spoke. You didn't let her win. I looked at him. His voice sounded older than 14. No. He nodded slowly. Then he said something that broke my heart. Nobody ever stops her. For a moment I couldn't speak. Because he was right. Nobody ever had. Not really. Not until now. I walked around the counter and hugged him. I will always stop anyone who hurts you. He didn't say anything, but he hugged me back. And somehow, that felt bigger than words. For a while I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A few weeks later, Kelsey reappeared online. The first post seemed innocent enough. No names. No direct accusation. Just vague victimhood. Funny how the people who pretend to have everything together are always the cruelest. Thousands of people post things like that every day. But everyone who knew us understood exactly who she meant. Then came the next post. And the next. Each one becoming more specific. More manipulative. More dishonest. Then she crossed a line. A line I never thought even Kelsey would cross. She used Liam. She referenced his developmental challenges. His history. His struggles. The battles he'd fought for years to overcome. She turned them into sympathy bait. Into social media content. Into ammunition. The moment I read it, I felt physically sick. Not because she was attacking me. Because she was exploiting him. Again. For attention. My phone started buzzing. Friends. Neighbors. Parents from school. Former co-workers. People asking if I was okay. People asking what had happened. Then, one message stood out. A woman named Serena. Someone I hadn't spoken to since high school. Her message was simple. I have screenshots. My stomach dropped. We scheduled a call. And that's when everything changed. Serena explained that she belonged to a local parenting group online. Apparently, Kelsey had spent months building support there. Posting stories. Complaining about me. Painting herself as a victim. Creating an entire alternate reality. But she made one mistake. She forgot the internet remembers everything. Weeks before Thanksgiving, she'd posted something very different. A post where she wasn't pretending to be a victim. A post where she was bragging, mocking, being herself. The screenshots were devastating. One read, "Living with my sister is exhausting. She acts like she's perfect." Another, "Her kid only talks about robots. It's honestly creepy." Another, "Can't wait to leave this place when I'm ready." Months of evidence. Months of contradictions. Months of exposing herself. The victim's story collapsed instantly. I asked Serena if I could use the screenshots. She agreed. For 2 days I debated what to do. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to rant. I wasn't going to attack. I wasn't going to explain. I simply posted the screenshots. Nothing else. Except one sentence. "Truth doesn't need decoration." That was it. The reaction was immediate. People connected the dots. Former co-workers began commenting. Old friends shared their own experiences. Relatives who had stayed silent suddenly started speaking. Story after story emerged. Patterns. Lies. Manipulation. The image Kelsey had spent years constructing began falling apart in real time. Then something happened that shocked me more than anything else. My mother commented publicly. Just one sentence. "I believed her too many times. Never again." I stared at the screen. Read it twice. 3 times. Mom had never publicly challenged Kelsey. Not once. Until now. Within an hour, Kelsey's social media accounts disappeared. Deleted. Gone. The campaign ended overnight. No dramatic final speech. No last argument. Just silence. But something about that silence bothered me, because I knew Kelsey. And Kelsey never walked away quietly. When she disappeared, it usually meant she was planning something. And deep down, I had a feeling her most dangerous move was still ahead. I just didn't realize that move would involve Liam. And when it happened, even I wasn't prepared for how far she was willing to go. Kelsey disappeared for almost 6 weeks. No texts, no social media, no messages through relatives, nothing. At first, I kept waiting for the next disaster. Then gradually, I stopped. Life settled into something peaceful. Christmas passed. Then, New Year's. Liam continued thriving in his robotics program. His confidence slowly returned. The tension that had hung over our house for months finally began fading. For the first time in a long time, our home felt safe. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was drinking coffee and sorting through emails before work when I noticed a message from Liam's school. At first, I assumed it was something routine, a permission slip, a school event. Instead, the subject line made my stomach tighten. Request regarding student records. I opened it immediately. The assistant principal explained that a relative had recently contacted the school. The caller claimed to be concerned about Liam. She wanted information about his accommodations, his academic support plan, his behavior, his records. She repeatedly asked whether the school was monitoring him closely enough around other students. For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen, my heart pounding, because I already knew who it was. Kelsey. It had to be. Nobody else would do something so cruel. Nobody else would try to weaponize Liam's past against him. I called the school immediately. The assistant principal confirmed it. Kelsey had identified herself by name. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Apparently, she'd suggested that Liam might be a concern for other students. As if he were some kind of threat. As if a boy who spent most of his free time building robots and reading science magazines was dangerous. I felt sick. Not angry. Not yet. Sick. Because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about Liam. The one person in this entire situation who had never done anything wrong. I explained everything. The family history. The harassment. The screenshots. The online attacks. The school listened carefully. Within hours, they flagged her number. Restricted all outside inquiries regarding Liam. Added additional protections to his records. The school counselor even called me personally. "I'm so sorry," she said. "We'll make sure this never happens again." I thanked her. Then I sat alone in my office for a long time, trying to understand how someone could sink that low. But the truth was simple. Kelsey had always believed everyone else existed to serve her needs. When guilt stopped working, she used manipulation. When manipulation stopped working, she used lies. And when lies stopped working, she looked for new targets. This time, she chose my son. That was her final mistake. That evening, I forwarded the school's email to my parents. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. My father called within 20 minutes. His voice sounded exhausted, not angry, heartbroken. She's done. 3 words. Nothing else. But I knew exactly what he meant. For years he'd protected her, defended her, excused her. Not anymore. An hour later, Mom texted, "You have our full support. Whatever happens next." I looked at the message for a long time, because those were words I'd never expected to hear. Not when it came to Kelsey. Not after a lifetime of favoritism. But people eventually reach a limit. Even parents. Especially when innocent children become targets. And Liam had become one. That night I made several difficult phone calls. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted Kelsey punished. Because I was genuinely worried about her children. Over the previous months, I'd learned things. She had no stable address. No steady employment. No real support system. She moved constantly. Stayed wherever someone would let her. And every time a relationship failed, the boys paid the price. New schools. New homes. New chaos. Meanwhile, she continued spending her energy attacking everyone around her. I couldn't ignore that anymore. So I reported my concerns. Calmly. Factually. Without exaggeration. Then I moved on with my life. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing. Then one evening my phone buzzed. A text message. From a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. 3 words stopped me cold. I lost them. Below that came another message. "You happy now?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Long enough for Matthew to notice. "What happened?" he asked softly. I handed him the phone. He read the messages. Neither of us spoke immediately. Because despite everything Kelsey had done, this wasn't something to celebrate. There were children involved. Children who deserved stability. Children who deserved better. I wasn't happy. Not even a little. What I felt was sadness. Not for Kelsey. For the damage she'd created. For the opportunities she'd wasted. For the people she'd hurt, including herself. Eventually I typed a reply. Just 1 sentence. They deserved better. So did we. Then I blocked the number. For good. No dramatic speech. No final argument. No victory lap. Just an ending. Weeks turned into months. The chaos disappeared. Life continued. Liam flourished. His robotics team won competitions. His grades improved. More importantly, he smiled more. He talked more. He believed in himself more. One evening, we sat together on the back patio watching the sunset. The air was cool. The neighborhood quiet. Liam looked up from the project he was building and asked a question. "Do you ever miss her?" For a moment I thought about it. The answer surprised even me. "I miss who I wanted her to be." He nodded, like he understood, because maybe he did. We sat in silence for a while. Then he returned to his project. And I watched him. The boy she'd called behind. The boy she'd mocked. The boy she'd spent years trying to diminish. He wasn't behind. He was moving forward. Every single day. And that was something nobody could take away from him. Not Kelsey. Not her lies. Not her bitterness. Nothing. For years I thought the strongest thing a person could do was keep forgiving. Keep helping. Keep giving chances. I don't believe that anymore. Sometimes strength means drawing a line. Sometimes strength means saying enough. Sometimes strength means protecting the people you love, even when the person hurting them shares your last name. Kelsey spent years believing she could tear people down without consequences. She spent years confusing kindness with weakness. She was wrong. The truth eventually catches up to everyone. And when it finally caught up to her, it wasn't revenge that ended the story. It was accountability. As for me, I didn't win because she lost. I won because my son was finally safe. Because our home became peaceful again. Because the people who mattered finally saw the truth. And because Liam learned something I hope he never forgets. No matter how loud cruel people become, they don't get to define your worth. The last time he mentioned Kelsey was months later. Just 1 sentence before heading upstairs for bed. A sentence I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. "I'm glad you chose me," I smiled. And after everything we'd been through, I finally realized something. I would choose him every single time.